just yet, well, you better know now, because it's the place that it all goes down.
Hello and welcome back to another edition of the TWSN Tailgate Show. As always, I am your host, Matt Levine, and today I am joined by our guy, Will Hollon, who was with us last week. Will, how are you doing today? We got some college football to talk about.
I'm doing great, man. I'm really excited to get into these picks and everything else that we've got to talk about. It was started off as a great week of college football in the semifinals, and then we know what happened in the second game. Wasn't as interesting, but overall, I would say it was best for the sport that what happened, and I'm ready to get into these, man. Let's have it.
Yeah, no, of course. And as everyone probably realizes, Bill, our guy Bill, is no longer here. He is not on the show any longer. We wish him well in his next endeavors. Bill, if you are watching this, just want to thank you for all your time. Everyone appreciates it. But we got some football we got to talk about, Will. But before we get into everything, we want to ask everybody to like, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Please like this video. We really do appreciate it. It does help out content, helps out everything. We're putting content out here for you. So, and check out TWSN.net. We got all kinds of articles going out. We got prediction articles, trade articles. We got reflection pieces. We got reaction pieces. We got all sorts of things. Every sport going out every day, multiple times throughout the day. So please make your way over there. But before we get into everything else we got to talk about just for this week, Will, we got to talk about last week. You brought it up a little bit, right? Let's first talk about the game that was over by probably the second quarter, because that game, to me, I feel like we can easily start there, right? Oregon and Indiana, the rematch. It was being hyped up as this awesome, epic rematch, right? You and I both picked Oregon last week on this show. That pick did not age well. Oregon got run out of the building. Now, I will give them credit for one drive and one drive only. They looked competent, and that was after a pick six thrown by Dante Moore. What do you make of that game, Will? Because Oregon came into this season with such high expectations, and everyone believed that this could be the year for the Ducks. And then to go out like this, they go out being blown off the field against a team that they had already lost to. What do you make of what happened on the field the other night?
It was a tough watch, to say the least. I mean, to put it this way, the game was over after 11 seconds, and from the second that Dante Moore threw that pick six, again, I reiterate, 11 seconds into the game, it was over. One of my friends messaged me in a group chat and said, yeah, Oregon might as well go home. It was that bad, and we knew that it was going to be that bad. And then I do, like you said, I give Oregon tons of credit. They looked really good and surgical on the next offensive drive that they had. Dante Moore, that was as good of a response as you could possibly hope for in that situation. And then after that, Indiana's offense came back on the field and they did what they did. What I take away from that game is Indiana kind of is starting to feel like the team of destiny. And Oregon, I don't want to say that they kind of proved all of the doubters right and all of the haters right for what they were saying throughout the whole season. But it kind of looked like Oregon was just not on the same level. They did not deserve to be on the same field as Indiana on that night. And it's kind of hard to wrap my head around. So I don't know. It's a tough look for Oregon, but I think they'll bounce back. Hopefully they bounce back. I think overall you have to mark this up as an overall successful season for Oregon. But as far as moving forward, there are questions that need to be asked about Dan Lanning, and we'll get into that later.
And we can get into that right now.
Yeah, I marked it up.
You brought up my next point.
Right now.
Dan Lanning, great coach. You and I both talked about this last week. Yes. He is a great coach. He's a great motivator. I mean, until the other night I don't think anything anyone would have said could have ever had anyone anticipate a pick six on the first play of the game. That sunk Oregon. That sunk everything. I know they came back and tied it. You cannot come back from something like that. It is so difficult to do. We've only seen a handful of teams in any sport with a play like that, be able to actually hold their ground and come back. But, everyone was talking about Dan Lanning, and they've been talking about Dan Lanning as this top-tier coach. But he hasn't won anything. He's been with the Ducks 5 years now, something like that, 4 or 5 years. They've never gone to a national championship game. This was the closest they've gotten with him, and they got blown off the field. Is he as good as we think, Will? Because results really are kind of showing that he may not be this top tier guy, or maybe it's his talent. Maybe he needs to figure out a different way to go after players. I don't know. What do you think?
I think talent evaluation, like you said, that's part of the problem. I think that Dan Lanning and the scouting department, they need to up it a little bit. They need to be better. I think that when we think Oregon, we think all these elite athletes, great players over the years. They put together fantastic rosters. In the semifinals, it just didn't look like they had a very competent roster, honestly. And we know that they have great players. Dante Moore is amazing. They have great running backs somewhere out with injury, great weapons on the outside, great players on the defense. Offensive line, kind of shaky. But overall, I think talent evaluation, that's a big problem. I think the biggest thing is just the results that you're getting in these big games. I don't want to act like Dan Lanning hasn't done anything, hasn't won anything. He did win a Big Ten championship first year in the Big Ten last season. I hold that up there with one of his better wins at Oregon. He's won big games. He beat Ohio State last season in the regular season, won some big games this season against USC. He's had big wins, but in the biggest moments, when the lights are the brightest, it feels like he is good at getting his guys ready for that game, but it feels like the on-field execution once they get to the game is just not there.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of see it, and we have to have a conversation, and we'll talk a little more about. We could talk about it now. Dante Moore, right? My fears for Dante Moore all year came true in the 2 games against Indiana, because watching him at UCLA, he has grown a lot since then, right? But watching him at UCLA, he looked timid. He looked kind of scared. He didn't really know what he was doing. That was my fear for him coming into Oregon with these high expectations now. And he proved I'm just looking at me. He proved me wrong throughout the entire season. He's coming back now, right? He's going to be your starting quarterback for the Ducks next year. The real question I have, can Oregon win a national championship with Dante Moore as their starting quarterback?
I don't really know how to answer that question because obviously college football changes so much year to year. You can never know what a team is going to be in January or February. But as far as what I believe about Dante Moore, I think he's a great quarterback. I think he's probably top 5, at least top 10 in college football. I don't think anyone's putting that in doubt. But you're right. The 2 games against Indiana, he was seeing ghosts in both of those games. That he looked shook up out there, and that's something you don't normally see. This is a very calm and very poised, collected guy when he's on the field, most like 95% of the time. The Penn State game comes to mind. He looked like a surgeon out there. That was a crazy environment, the wide out. We all know how crazy it is. And he looked like he was at a practice out there. It came to him naturally. I don't know what it is about these Kurt Cignetti teams, this Indiana team in specific, that gets this guy shook up like this, but it definitely raises some flags. I think that going into next season, it's going to be overall better for him because now he's got the full season under his belt. We forget this was his first season starting in college football. He's only got 14 games as a starter, something like that. He's going to come back next season with another year in the system under his belt, and I think that he's going to grow and progress even more throughout the season. We can't be too sure what the rest of the Big Ten is going to look like or what even Oregon is going to look like, but I think that Dante Moore will be a good enough quarterback to get them there. Can they win it? I don't know. That's the big question. I'm not sure how to answer that.
Yeah, I mean, he's going back to college, as we've talked about, and he has to hone in on some of the basics, right? Like he needs to work a little bit on his skills, and I think they can win a championship with Dante Moore. But I think Dan Lanning is going to have to, I don't want to say handhold him a little more, but maybe early on. He needs to wait. He can't fully give Moore the power right away. Moore needs to prove it. And Moore had a hell of a season. I am not taking anything away from what he did. But as we saw against the one team that he needed to beat to get to where Oregon wants to go, whether it was the regular season game or whether it was the other day, he came up short. He came up, I don't want to say small, but he kind of did. He didn't show up. he didn't look the part. And that's a little scary as if you're a Ducks fan heading into next year. You want to know that your quarterback can get it done. On the flip side, we have seen what Fernando Mendoza can do. This man is this Indiana team as a whole. We'll talk more about Indiana here in a few minutes because obviously they're in the championship game. But what they did to Oregon, I haven't seen it in a long time, and it was one of the more impressive wins I have seen in the college football playoff era, especially because of how good Oregon was all year. So, Indiana is going to be a tough game for Miami. Well, again, we'll talk about that here in a few minutes. But I want to talk about the other game, Miami and Ole Miss, because you had Ole Miss basically thinking they might go to the championship game, minus Lane Kiffin after all the drama. And then Carson Beck goes down the field, leads his team, rushes into the end zone for the win. What did you see on that field, Will? Because that was probably the game of the playoff, I'm assuming, unless this Miami-Indiana game decides to be a hell of a game. But I think that might end up being the best game we've seen in a long time, at least for this season, because it was just back and forth, two teams that wanted to win.
I would go as far as saying that was easily the best game that we have seen this season. It reminded me a lot of, I believe it was the Sugar Bowl or maybe the Peach Bowl last year with Texas and Arizona State. Just an exhilarating game from start to finish. Carson Beck deserves his flowers. He got them that win very much so. And I think it's kind of what we've been waiting for is Carson Beck going to have that game where he kind of excels? Because he can be a great game manager. And we all know that as long as he plays clean football, Miami's probably going to take care of business and win the game no matter who they're playing. And it says a lot about Carson Beck and the rest of the team and what they were able to do going out there and beating Ole Miss in a shootout of sorts, because that was the game that I said Ole Miss probably wanted to play. They wanted to go and win a shootout. They wanted to make Miami chase them and keep up, score 30, 40 points if they had to. Miami had no problem doing that, and I think a lot of that is because of Carson Beck, the decisions he made. He looked great out there in a game where Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor didn't really factor in that much like I thought that they would or they needed to win. It gives me a lot of hope for Miami moving forward in the championship game that if those guys aren't on or they're not impacting as much, that the team can still compete. Now, don't get me wrong, they need to step up. They need to be big in this national championship game, but it says a lot about the team as a whole. When your two best players on defense aren't impacting the game like you hope that they will or expect them to still find a win, that says a lot about the team.
Yeah, and honestly, Ole Miss came to play. Let's not sugarcoat it. Ole Miss came to play. I'm not taking anything away from Miami, but Ole Miss came to play, and they showed me a lot of heart. And we talked about this before. It's not easy to navigate what Ole Miss just navigated, right? Losing your head coach, right? In the most successful season your program has had in years, right? Having all the drama of him going to a rival, right? You're in the spotlight, but you're not the team getting him. And for them to get one win from the championship game, you have to give some credit to Pete Golding. You have to give credit to these players, and it's going to be interesting to see the future of this Ole Miss team because now they've kind of tasted that success and they're going to want more of that. And I assume they're going to probably make Pete Golding the full-time head coach. They never – did they announce –
It's official.
It's official. Okay, that's – okay.
It's official.
Okay. I mean, he should. He led them through all this turmoil and
Absolutely.
awesome. It was awesome what he's done, and just his media sound bites have been fun to see. It's going to make the LSU Ole Miss rivalry one of the most fun things we're going to see next season and beyond. But you have to give it to Ole Miss. Credit to Miami, though. They made one extra play because I think this game really was going to come down to who had the ball last, and it really ended up being that way. I know there was that controversial non-call at the end of the game. I'm okay with that. I don't want the refs dictating anything. Unless it's fully blatant, I don't want the refs to decide who goes to the national championship game. We can't have that. That would have been miserable for the sport. But it sets us up for an awesome national championship game, one that most people probably never expected. I can certainly sit here and say I did not have either Miami or Indiana in my title game back in August now. So it's going to be fun.
Anyone can show us proof that they had this national championship matchup back in July or August, I will give you every dollar in my bank account because nobody on this earth had that national championship matchup. It's crazy.
Bill did have Indiana. He did not have Miami, but he had Indiana. So maybe he gets half your bank account. We'll have to talk to him about that. We'll talk. But we got to move on a little bit here. But before we get in to the national championship game, we have the transfer portal going on in this wacky schedule that college football is doing right now, where meaningful games are being played. Players are transferring out. They're going to different teams. Oregon had players in the transfer portal who were playing in their game the other day. Like, I don't understand what's happening sometimes. We need to fix this scheduling nonsense in college football. But that's a whole other discussion. There's been some new developments on the transfer portal since we, joined last. Some big name quarterbacks are off the board, wide receivers, running backs. I mean, you got Georgia Tech getting Justice Haynes. Like, it's been crazy. And, the majority of players are, at least the big name players are now off the board. There's still going to be a lot of movement because it closes tomorrow. But let's talk about a couple of these because we just kind of have to. It's too big. Dylan Raiola going to Oregon. This happened before Dante Moore decided to come back. He is now going to be the backup to Dante Moore. Do you think this is the right decision for Raiola, or do you think Raiola should try to, in the next, 24 hours or so, try to go find a starting job somewhere else?
I think that this was the best move that he could have made, and I think that he needs to stay put. I think that he made this decision knowing that or having a good clue that Dante Moore was probably going to stick around for another season. I say it's the best decision he could have made because he is dealing with that leg injury that shortened his season at Nebraska. So he's going to go to Oregon. He's going to rehab that. He's going to get the best recovery that money can buy. And he's going to get to learn a great system behind Dante Moore, who did just take his team to the national semis. And that, to me, is better for Dylan Raiola's long-term future because he's not going to have the pressure of going to one of these big schools and being the starter, being in the spotlight. I think that's something that probably hurt him a little bit at Nebraska, coming in and being the day one starter as a freshman, getting all the Mahomes comparisons, even though those were crazy just because of how he looks. But that's another conversation to have later. I think that kind of hurt him and hurt his stock overall. I think this is the best decision he could have made for his long-term future, for his draft stock, because now he's going to get to sit, learn this system, and then when Dante Moore inevitably goes into the draft next season, that'll be your 2027 starter for the Oregon Ducks, Dylan Raiola. He'll have all that time in this system. It's the same thing that Dante Moore just did. We've seen what he did. So I believe in Dylan Raiola and his decision to do this. I don't think that it was a bad decision at all. I think this is what's best for him.
Yeah, I was literally just going to say Dante Moore did the same thing with Dylan Gabriel, and look where he's gotten. If Dante Moore had gone into the NFL draft, he would have probably been the number 2 pick. Like, let's not sugarcoat. He would have been 99% would have been the number 2 pick, barring something crazy going on or measurables being horrible or the Jets just not liking him, basically. So this is a move for Dylan Raiola's future, basically. He does not need to play next year. We've seen what he can do, and he is still a very raw prospect at the quarterback position.
Yes.
He needs to stop being so flat-footed. I think that is one of his biggest issues. He's kind of like a statue in the pocket sometimes, and it hurt him. It hurt him at Nebraska, but I think working with Dante Moore, working with Dan Lanning, I think it's going to help him. And God forbid there's an injury to Dante Moore. Oregon has probably the best backup quarterback in the entire country.
Yeah. And
this is a team with championship expectations, as we just talked about. So I agree. I think this is probably the best move he could have done, barring maybe staying at Nebraska. But even then, you're going to have all the expectations. So I love this move. I think it's one of the better moves in the transfer portal, and I really hope it works out for him. But next, Arch Manning got a weapon. Cam Coleman goes to Texas. Bill talked about it on the show last week and the week before, I believe. Coleman was looking at Texas. Texas was looking at Coleman, and it came together. Arch got a weapon, and Texas is going to be a problem. I know people are going to count Texas out because of what happened this year, but Arch didn't have very many starts in college football. This was his first full year. He was learning, and now he has one of the top receivers probably in the country. And I think the Longhorns are going to be really good next year. Did you like this move, or did you want to see Coleman kind of go somewhere else?
I love this move. I think that this is what they needed more than anything. They need that big play weapon. I think this is best for all parties. Arch Manning gets his weapon, his true number one alpha receiver that he lacked last year. I love Ryan Wingo. I think Wingo's great. I love all the Texas receivers. I think they've got a great skill set, and I think they've got an elite core with them now with Coleman. I think that he was the missing piece. Coleman never really reached his potential because it was just a terrible situation at Auburn. Um, Bad quarterback play, not the right play calls. Like, this is a guy that can absolutely go out there and have 1,300 receiving yards next year, bare minimum, I believe. He can go out there. He can be that day one, number one receiver that Arch Manning needs to fully unlock this Texas offense. I love the move for all parties.
Yeah, I mean, I do too. I think you needed to give Arch something. I mean, he showed some things at the end of the year. Texas started playing a little bit better. I think this move is going to help propel them, and I think we're going to see Texas right back in the college football playoff conversation next year. And Longhorn fans are going to be very happy with this. But
Absolutely.
we got another big one. Lane Kiffin gets his guy. I mean, Sam Leavitt leaves Arizona State. We talked a little bit about Sam Leavitt last week. Leaves Arizona State. You know, he's being recruited by 10 different schools. Basically, he went on to 15.
Pretty much everybody.
15. Yeah, he basically went and visited everyone. Ends up at LSU. I mean, I personally think this might be the most impactful move of the transfer portal because what Lane Kiffin just did with Trinidad Chambliss tells me all I need to know about what he could potentially do with someone like Sam Leavitt. We talked about it last week. Sam Leavitt's skill set is awesome. He's explosive. He can run. He can throw. He's mobile. He's agile. Like, he's everything that a Lane Kiffin offense wants, basically. And now you're going to put him with the play calling mastermind that is Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weiss, right? With the talent at the wide receiver position that LSU has. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better situation for someone like Sam Leavitt. I mean, are you in agreement with me, or do you not like this? Because I know you even had some concerns about Leavitt.
I did have concerns about Leavitt, but in the end, I think this was always the move that just made the most sense, right? It's the most popular coach in the country in Lane Kiffin. Love him or hate him. Everybody talks about him. He's very dynamic with the way he calls his offenses. And Sam Leavitt is the best quarterback that was in the portal. I don't care what you say. I think that he was better than Brendan Sorsby. I think that this guy was the number one quarterback, maybe the number one player in the portal. He's right up there with the most impactful commitments that were made. I think that this fully unlocks the LSU offense in a way because you look at last season, Garrett Nussmeier, he's a fine quarterback, but he's not really a college level, a starter. He just doesn't have that mobility. And in today's age, you got to be able to move a little bit. When the play breaks down, you got to get outside the pocket, make something happen downfield with your legs, whatever it be. Sam Leavitt is that. Sam Leavitt can come in day one. If anything happens, he can go out on his own and he can make it happen with his legs. He can make it happen with his arm. He's going to have elite talent around him. He's going to have great play calls coming in every single play. I think that this is the most – I'll agree with you, actually. This is the most impactful signing of the transfer portal window.
Yeah, I mean, but when it comes to expectations, Sam Leavitt, I know he took Arizona State to the college football playoff, right? But no one saw that coming, right? So there was pressure. There was expectation to win, but it's not the same as it is going to be with the LSU Tigers. If Sam Leavitt does not perform, he's going to get eaten alive by those Tiger fans. I mean, I'm one of the fans. I'm not gonna criticize him because I don't like doing all that. But those fans in Death Valley mean business, and this right here, he has to win. Lane Kiffin has to win based off of everything that has gone down. The best way to silence everybody is to go out there and win. I mean, his old team just came within one win of the championship game. I'm not going to sit here and say that that's the bare minimum Lane Kiffin needs to do, but one could argue, and I'm not going to hate it. And then on top of it, on top of Lane Kiffin picking up Sam Leavitt, the LSU Tigers picked up Hussein Longstreet. I always mispronounce. I apologize to him, but I'm going to go with Hassan Longstreet, the USC quarterback who was their backup. He chose LSU to be a backup over a few other starting jobs that he reportedly, turned down. He's going to back up Sam Leavitt, and Lane Kiffin has his quarterback for 2027 and 2028 potentially. And this kid is special. He has a lot of potential. Do you think that this was the right move? He's kind of doing what they're kind of doing Oregon doing with Dylan Raiola, but did you like this move from Longstreet?
I did like the move. He's not played. I don't think he's played a snap of college football. He may have played a little bit this season at USC.
He played a little bit in a blowout game in the beginning of the year, I believe.
So mostly empty calorie stats for him, but he is a very talented quarterback, super athletic. I like the move for him, and I like the fact that we saw him commit to LSU knowing Sam Leavitt's probably going to be the guy you're willing to sit. It's the same situation like you said up in Oregon. That shows a lot of maturity. That shows a lot of patience from these guys in this day and age of college football where you don't see a lot of that. I think it could be a good sign moving forward. I really like that move for Longstreet and LSU.
Yeah, Lane Kiffin's called the Portal King for a reason, and he got two of the better quarterbacks available. We have one more topic we want to go over, but before, we just got some news that just came down. John Mateer will not be entering the NFL draft. He will be returning to Oklahoma. Where does this put the Sooners in terms of title contenders for you next year?
Wow, I wasn't expecting this. I think that seeing what they did last year with the absolutely terrible schedule that they were handed, making the college football playoff, going 10-2, that was not expected. I can't remember what their schedule says this season, but they're going to be retaining John Mateer, and I think that John Mateer, when fully healthy, we forget what that guy was doing in September. He was all over the Heisman boards. I think that they can absolutely be just as good as they were in 2025 moving forward. The SEC, it's hell, from week to week. You never know what you're going to get. But it's the deepest conference in America, and I think that they're one of the better teams. It depends on how the schedule shakes out. It depends on how everything goes. I mean, I would be willing to say that they'll be at least a fringe playoff team. I think I could make that statement. I think Brent Venables is one of the best coaches in America. I think the defense is going to be electric every season, and I think that John Mateer, if he's got some rest and he comes into it healthy, I mean, who's to say that this guy doesn't show up in New York at the end of next season?
Yeah, we were. Early on, we were talking before he got hurt. We were talking about him as a potential Heisman candidate.
He was on my board.
I definitely think if Oklahoma was able to stay alive, I'll say, with that death schedule they just had, this is a great move. I wasn't expecting it either. I thought he was going to the NFL, but you know what? This feels like an unfinished business situation to me. Yes. And John Mateer and the Sooners, they're going to be a handful next year once again. But lastly, Will, this is the topic we've talked about offline a little bit. Miami. I mean, they're in the championship game, but who's their quarterback going to be next year? And we could say the same thing for Tennessee as well. I mean, both Miami and Tennessee have kind of missed out on these top tier quarterbacks in the portal. Where do they go from here? I mean, you got Emory Jones probably at this point. I mean, what do you make of this? Why haven't they been so aggressive? And do you think it's going to end up hurting them next year?
So I'm not sure if it'll end up hurting them. I'll say this. I don't think they really care right now because, of course, in a couple of days, they're going to play a national championship game on their home field. I'm sure that's all they're really worried about right now, the fact that they could win a national championship at home in their stadium. That's probably priority number one right now, and I imagine that is probably why they haven't been so aggressive in the portal for a quarterback, because before the portal opened, we were projecting everybody to Leavitt. All the big names were at least going to visit there, and Miami was going to be a big-time player for one of these big-name quarterbacks, whoever it was. And now we're a day out from the portal closing. They still haven't picked up their guy. I assume they're going to go with Emory next season. If that's the move they make, fine. I don't think that's a needle mover, but he's been there for a few years. He understands the system. He's familiar with that whole program. I think that he's probably your best option, unless you magically find somebody like a Trinidad Chambliss in the next 24 hours before the portal closes, which I don't see happening. I think that's probably your best bet. That's probably what you're looking at.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. If Miami wins this game on Monday, I don't think they're even care. They're not going to care.
No.
They're not going to care about what happens.
It's going to be the least of their concerns.
But if they lose, I think they're going to look back and say, I wish we might have been a little more aggressive in the portal, because then you're setting yourself up for next year to probably be worse. And look, I am not a college football coach, right? I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, it's easy to do this, do that. But we have seen the best coaches be able to navigate the portal, navigate recruiting, while also focusing on winning on the field. Look at Nick Saban. Granted, he didn't deal with every little thing that's going on now, but he was able to get top recruiting classes while winning championships at Alabama. That is something that these coaches are going to have to navigate going forward. You can't just focus on the field. You have to focus on, okay, how do I sustain this success and go into next season? But for now, like you said, Miami doesn't care. They don't care. Miami's 100% focused on winning this championship on Monday. But Tennessee's not in the championship game. Will, I know you follow Tennessee. What do you make of this? Because Tennessee had a pretty good year this year. It wasn't obviously the greatest. It wasn't what they expected. They made the playoff last year. They obviously got blown out. They came back this year. It's been okay, right? It was an okay season. I mean, where do they go from here? Because they don't have a clear answer at the quarterback position either.
So I think that Tennessee shocks me maybe even a little bit more, because like knowing the Joey Aguilar situation, he's probably not coming back. He's probably not winning those cases against the NCAA, not getting that extra year. It shocks me that they were not aggressive. I mean, I know they were aggressive, I'll say this, but it shocks me that they weren't able to land anybody. They apparently had Sam Levitt on campus, and then Lane Kiffin came and swept him off his feet in the airport. Crazy story. Ty Simpson, they were apparently throwing some money at him last minute before he entered the NFL draft. Missed out on Simpson. Couldn't get Hoover. Couldn't get Sorsby. We weren't fast enough out of the blocks to get those guys because they signed early. Missed out on Raiola. He's at Oregon. And now you're looking at probably an old school quarterback battle throughout spring and fall camp between Faison Brandon and George McIntyre. Both freshmen. Faison Brandon is the guy that I personally would lean towards. He's going to be a true freshman. He's got a big arm. He's a freak athlete. He's out of North Carolina. I think that he fits the Josh Heupel offense a little bit more. I think that he also just physically has filled out more somehow. He's more ready for SEC football on a week-to-week basis and just playing at this level. I know he's a true freshman. No, he's never played a snap of college football. He's not familiar with the system yet like McIntyre is. But the thing with McIntyre that really does scare me, if he is the one that lands the job somehow, is the fact that he's kind of built like a beanpole, honestly. Like he's a really lanky guy. He's like 6'6", probably not even 200 pounds soaking wet. It's crazy. But he's there for a reason. I'm going to trust whatever decision that Josh Heupel makes. I know Josh Heupel's watching this, so if you are watching this, please start Faison Brandon. I think that he's the guy that fits the most. If you're not going to go get a portal quarterback here in the next 24 or so hours, go with Brandon.
I mean, it's kind of weird the way Tennessee's gone about this. And you mentioned Ty Simpson, and he is still technically available. I know he did declare he wants to go to the NFL. He said he's not coming back, but money does talk sometimes. And it was reported he turned down, I think, like $6 million or something from Miami, I believe it was.
It was.
I think it was Miami to come back. He said he didn't want to ruin what he had built with the Crimson Tide. And respectfully, I don't really know what he built with the Crimson Tide. But, that's okay. You know what? That's okay with – you know what? In this era, I respect his decision to go to the NFL.
Absolutely.
But if he wanted to come back, Tennessee or Miami, that wouldn't be a bad deal for either one. So Ty Simpson, if you're watching this, I mean, college football could use you for another year. You were in the Heisman race. Maybe you win it next year. But that is enough transfer portal talk for us, Will, because it's closing tomorrow. We've already talked about all the big names. We have an actual game we have to talk about here. And that is the Miami Hurricanes hosting the Indiana Hoosiers in the national championship game. The first time this has ever happened in college football. We have seen it in the NFL, obviously, twice now, with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Los Angeles Rams. Both times in the NFL, the home team won the game. So maybe some history on the Miami side, but we have to talk about this because I have been seeing this go everywhere for the last since Indiana blew out Oregon. Can anyone beat this team? Because Indiana is just a juggernaut right now, or at least they've been all year. They've only had a couple close games, found ways to win, but otherwise they've been blowing teams out, and it hasn't been close. Well, can anyone beat them? And I know the only option to beat them is Miami, but like just hyperbole, can anyone beat this team, Will?
Well, so far, no. I mean, and look, hand up, I was definitely one of the people that was still thinking probably halfway through this season, up until about the Oregon game, that Indiana is a much improved team from last season. They had a great team last season, but they were clearly a step down from the truly elite teams of college football. And it took me until this playoff run to finally say I 100% believe in what they're doing. I still thought that there was a way for teams to get them. And look at them now; they're 15-0, and they're playing in the national championship. It's crazy to say. Never thought I'd say it in my life. As far as anyone beating them, I think if you were going to handpick anyone in the country, you would probably look at this Miami team, because I think that they have proven over the last few weeks they are the only other team that is on this level. But to be completely honest, I don't know that they are on that level of Indiana. I think that Indiana may just be in a tier of their own.
Yeah, I mean, and let's say Indiana wins, just for hypothetical sake, right? Where do you put them all time? Because I have seen takes saying that they're better than the 2019 LSU team. Uh, enough. I don't want to see any more of that. I'm sorry. Joe Burrow and company would obliterate this Indiana team. Like, they probably beat them by a minimum 2 scores. I don't want to hear any more talk about that. But where do you put Indiana? All time, because if they win, they complete an undefeated season, and they are one of the better teams we have seen in the last 25 plus years. Would you put them in the top 3, top 5, top 2? If you think they're the top 1, I mean that's your call. But
I would say they're in. I would have to sit back and think about it. Off the top of my head, the 2019 LSU team, I'm taking them. I'm taking the 2001 Hurricanes. They weren't around, or I wasn't around during their time, but I grew up on YouTube, ESPN Classics. I've watched all of those games 10 times over. I know how great that they were. I think about those Nebraska teams from the mid-'90s. I've also watched plenty of them. I think they were great. Nick Saban had a few great Alabama teams. I would say they're like a fringe top 5. I would have to really go back and think about it and put some thought into it. But you can't deny with what they're doing. I mean, they've won however many ranked games in a row versus legit opponents. They're going to be the first, if they win out and they do what I think they're going to do, they're going to be the first ever 16-0 college football team, at least in the modern era. I know way back when teams used to play a lot of games for some reason. But in this era, that's unheard of, and that's an ultra impressive accomplishment. Something that I don't know if we'll ever see again, truthfully. I think Kurt Cignetti's built an amazing team. If they can finish the job, they're absolutely a top 10 team of all time. As far as where exactly they land in that list, not sure. I'd have to go back and think about it. Maybe we'll talk about it next week, but I'll have to give some more thought to that. But they are absolutely, right now, they look like one of the best teams of all time. This is an all-time team.
yeah, and you can't argue with the numbers that they have put up. You cannot argue with what they have done. But I do think they are at best a top 5 team. Anyway, I would probably put them anywhere between 6 and 10, just because it's just a different feel to it now. But I'm done hearing about this comparison with LSU, the 2019 team. I'm done. There's been too many
takes
that
I don't want to hear out.
There's too many takes saying, "Oh, they would beat them, or they would keep it close." They would not keep it close. That LSU team was insanely good. They blew out so many top 5 teams, top 10 teams. I don't want to hear it. Indiana is nowhere near where they are. But the fact that they are being compared to LSU shows how good this Indiana team is. So we can't take everything away from them. On the flip side, though, Carson Beck, because to me, Miami has one chance of winning this game, and that is if Carson Beck does not turn the ball over. We have been saying it. We have been banging our heads all year. When he doesn't turn the ball over, this Miami team is very dangerous and they are very good. When he doesn't get timid in close game situations, which he has not in the last few weeks, even last week, he looked really good in that last late game situation. But this is the biggest stage that college football has to offer. Is this a legacy game for Carson Beck? Because there's all these things going around. You either love Carson Beck or you think he is garbage. That is literally the only two ways I've seen fans go with Carson Beck. Do you think this is a legacy game? Because if he ends up winning a national championship, you can't take anything away from this man. He has found success. He has won. And if he wins a title, I don't know. We're going to have to change the whole narrative around Carson Beck, basically.
I don't see how you can't say that this is a legacy game. I think this is absolutely a legacy game. This is the biggest game he may ever play in his life. It's going to be his last college football game. He's got 2 rings as a backup. Those don't count. Those are paper rings. But for this moment, I think this absolutely, it's the biggest game of his life. And as far as them winning this game, I think he's going to have to do a lot more than just play clean football. I think he's going to have to play some next level football and really be the difference maker. Like Carson Beck, look, you're going to have to be the guy. You have to go take this game yourself. You can't just play pretty clean, efficient football, not turn the ball over, put up 130 passing yards, run it a few times, maybe get a score on the ground. That's probably not going to do it in this game. You're going to have to be the difference. And that's a question that I can't wait to see answered because I'm truly up in the air. Can Carson Beck be that guy? Can he be the difference and what makes this team go over the top in this game? We've seen him play great games before. We've seen him play great games this season, but it's going to take something otherworldly to stop this Indiana team.
Yeah, I mean, Miami's defense is obviously going to be tested too because they're going up against the Heisman winner. This Indiana offense is obviously clicking on all cylinders right now. And Miami's defense is the one defense I think we've been talking about that we thought could test Indiana a little bit. I mean, Ohio State too, and we saw it in their matchup. They held Indiana down, right? It's not like Indiana went out there and just blew out Ohio State, right? So there's a blueprint to beat Indiana, or at least put yourself into a situation where you can beat Indiana. We've seen it a couple times. Penn State also. Penn State had them on the ropes. Iowa had them on the ropes. So it's not like, let's not act like Indiana is this unbeatable force where nobody can even come close. They've almost lost a couple games. And credit to them, they have found ways to win, and that is how good teams stay where they are. And obviously Indiana is in the championship game for a reason. But there is a blueprint to beat them, and there's also a blueprint to beat Miami, and that is just basically forcing Carson Beck to do what he does best sometimes and turn the ball over. He gets into his head. You can see it when he makes throws sometimes. He's overthinking things, and that's the thing. He's going to have to play this game kind of free, and the pressure is on. It's a weird thing when Indiana is the favorite, but I think the pressure is weirdly on Carson Beck and Miami because they are in their home stadium, right? You have a home game in the national championship. Your fans are going to be there. I mean, Indiana fans are going to travel too. It's going to be a sea of red as well, but it's going to be probably, let's say 50-50, right? There's pressure on this Miami team. Let's not get ourselves. When you host a championship game, there's pressure, and we've never seen this before. So we're going to have to see how Miami reacts to this.
I'm assuming that because Mario Cristobal, I think that Mario Cristobal has kind of proven to be what we thought that Dan Lanning may be, in the fact that he can get his guys ready for game day in preparation, but when it comes to on-field execution, he's going to have his guys right. He's showed that over the last couple of weeks. I don't know how many. I think it's 8 games in a row now that Miami has won or something like that. They've been playing elite football. And to have a national championship game at home, I can't even comprehend that. Like, that's crazy. And I have to assume it's going to help them out a little bit. I know this line for this game kind of started out pretty crazy. I think it was like Indiana -7.5, and then the public bet it up to -8.5. So everyone is assuming that Indiana is just going to kind of walk away with this game, manhandle Miami. I'm not sure that it's going to be that way. I think that on their home field, it helps. I think the way that Miami's playing right now, it helps. Miami is the ultimate Cinderella in the college football playoff, for God's sakes. Like, you can't ignore that. I think this game will be a lot closer than people anticipate. I don't know if they're going to feel that pressure that they have to get it done. Like, well, they're probably going to feel it, but I don't know how much it'll factor into this game. I think they're going to go out there, they're going to try to play as clean a game as possible, not let any of the outside factors or noise affect them that much. I I think that this will be a very, very close game. I don't see Miami losing this game due to pressure from them being at home.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. But before we make our picks, I have a question for you. In all of the talk this year, it was how bad the ACC was, right? And there was people saying that the ACC is easily the worst conference, and they probably were. Let's just be real; they were overall. But there's an ACC team in the championship game having a chance to win the national championship game. There's also a Big Ten team. There's no SEC team, though. So, SEC fans, sorry, I'm one of them. You're going to have to wait another year. Is the ACC still a joke? Because the one ACC team that did make the college football playoff is now playing for a national championship game. And they took out one of, if not arguably the best college football team in the Big Ten, and potentially the best college football team in the SEC on the way to this. Don't worry, Indiana fans. I know you think you're better than Ohio State. You proved it. I'm not. I'm just saying Ohio State was number one all year up until the Big Ten championship game. So you take out Ohio State, Ole Miss on the way to this run. The one team from the ACC after all the trash talk that was going on all year. Are you still considering the ACC a joke, Will?
So I don't know if I ever truly considered the ACC in its entirety as a joke, but I think in like the conversation surrounding this Miami team, I don't even really look at this Miami team as an ACC team. I think that this is like some kind of Frankenstein mix of an SEC team and a Big Ten team. Like they've got, and an old school Pac-12 team in a lot of ways whenever they get going. This is not an ACC team to me. I think that they're kind of an outlier. But when I look at the rest of the ACC, I think that they're a little bit better than we like to give them credit for. I think that it's just a weird year because Clemson was expected to be like a national championship contender. We've seen what happened. They were 7-6. Very disappointing season. I had them as my preseason national championship pick. Terrible pick by me. Also, you have Florida State, the whole Mike Norvell situation. He should probably be out. You know, that's another conversation to have. But when you have those powers, those conference powers like that, and you expect them to be good, and you're counting on them to be good for the betterment of your conference, and then they go out there and they do what they did this season, it's easy to look at the ACC and say, hey, you're the worst conference ever. You're a joke. You're the laughingstock of college football, of the Power Four. But I think that when you really look at the ACC, it wasn't as bad as we probably talk about. Like, there were some pretty good teams in the ACC. I think that Wake Forest was a solid team that I watched a lot of. Virginia obviously was 10-2, went to the ACC championship. A 7-5 Duke team that I don't even want to talk about won the ACC somehow. Maybe that is counteracting my argument here because that's just, yeah, let's move on from that.
Some might say Duke should have been in the college football playoff, but
absolutely not. Absolutely not.
I'm just saying.
But I think the ACC as a whole, yes, it is the weakest of the Power Four conferences, but I don't think you can really look at it and say they're a joke or they're just a terrible conference. I mean, they had good teams. They just didn't have the normal powers that we expect to see at the top. They just had down years. Maybe they'll bounce back next year. And then Miami will still maybe be good. And then we'll have some surprise teams like Wake Forest, like a Duke, like Virginia, you know, like a Syracuse, maybe whoever. I think that the ACC is in a fine place. I still consider them the weakest of the Power Four, but I don't consider them a joke by any means. I think that they've got good teams. And I think that if Miami goes and they win this and you have the national championship winner from the ACC, it kind of helps out, you know, around the conversation a little bit. I would still consider them the weakest. I don't think there's a way out of this hole, but you undeniably have the best team in college football in your conference. You can gloat about that.
I mean, wouldn't it be so ironic after all the talk, after all the narratives around the ACC, they end up being the conference that has the national champion who beat the undefeated Big Ten team. Like that would just be a talking point in itself, basically, and they could sell that to any recruit, any transfer next year. It would be pretty insane. So, Will, the big question: who wins this game, and why? Basically, because I think you can make the case for both teams.
I think you can make the case for both teams. And when I knew that this would be the matchup, my heart kind of said Miami because I've been on Miami for most of the season since around after they beat Notre Dame. I was like, okay, maybe they actually are for real this season. And then I don't think I picked against them in a game up until last week. I was just feeling something about that Ole Miss team, some magic. Maybe they get through and complete that story of getting to the Natty without their head coach, but that wasn't the case. And now, for all intents and purposes, you look at Miami, this is the Cinderella team of the college football playoff. But as far as winning this matchup, I think the way they do it, and I don't even know if this can happen. I think that Miami on defense, they're going to have to drop 7 players a lot in coverage because Fernando Mendoza is probably going to shred this secondary just like he did the secondary last week, and you're probably going to want all the help you can get back there. And that leaves 4 people to get home on a great offensive line in Indiana. And can you get to Fernando Mendoza if you can get home with Ruben Bain, Akeem Mesidor, those guys? Then maybe you have a chance. But I don't know how much I believe in Miami getting home with 4 when they're dropping 7. I think that Fernando Mendoza, he's too quick. He sees the field too well. He's too smart. I think that he's going to shred this defense if they try to do that. So my game pick, I'm going to pick Indiana. I think that on top of them just looking like and being the best team in college football right now, top to bottom on both sides of the ball, I think that the story is there for them, right? Kurt Cignetti he's on the doorstep of completing the greatest turnaround in college football history with a bunch of guys from the G5 and a bunch of transfer portal guys. You know, they may be 30 or whatever you want to say, whatever Rick's for them being here and beating everybody else. They did it. They got there. They are in the national championship. I can't help but feel like the story is going to be complete of them winning, finishing 16-0. People are talking about them versus 2019 LSU, who's better, who would win, whatever. I think that that's going to be the reality we live in come Tuesday morning. I'm picking Indiana to win this game, but I'll say I think that Miami can keep it close.
Yeah, I mean, you make some good points. And we got our guy Josh in the comment section here saying that they're going to remind Indiana why they're just a football school. I mean,
you can't really
Josh,
argue that they're not.
You can't. No,
basketball is not hitting like it used to.
So I think for me, I have picked against Indiana for a long time, for most of the year, right? I was one of those I didn't fully believe. The second they blew out Oregon, because I had Oregon winning it all. That was my national championship pick. The second they blew out Oregon, I was like, all right, I can't deny how good this team is any longer. I can't sit here and ignore what Indiana is doing. The more I've thought about this game, again, the heart wants Miami because I think the Miami storyline is a little more intriguing to me as just a sports fan.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But Indiana is so good, and I just don't know if Carson Beck can do it. Plus, can the sports gods really rip Indiana fans' hearts out twice in a calendar year or in a full year? Because you know, you got the Pacers who lost in that heartbreaking Game 7 of the finals. What was that, like 7 months ago? And now you got the Hoosiers in the national championship game. If they lose, I don't know. We might need to send someone over to the state of Indiana because it's just going to be kind of brutal. Yeah, we got to check on them. I think Indiana's going to win the game. And I know that's not a trendy pick by any means. I know it's a boring pick considering we both are picking Indiana. But I think one of the 2 quarterbacks throws for over 250 yards in this game, and it's not going to be Fernando Mendoza. I think Fernando Mendoza I don't want to say he's going to struggle in this game, but I think he's going to have one of the slower games I'll say, that he has had all year, because I think this Miami defense is that good that they are going to limit him. And I think Carson Beck is going to play a hell of a game, and he's going to keep his team in this game. But at the end of the day, Indiana is just a little better than Miami. And I think Indiana is going to get the win. And as you said, they're going to complete the greatest turnaround in college football history. That does not mean they are the best team in college football history, just that they've had one of the best storyline seasons ever. Probably ever. I don't know if we're ever going to see this again. The Hoosiers are going to win, get their first national championship for this program, establishing something in Indiana that has not happened in a long time. I mean, I can't tell you the last time a team from Indiana even won anything, really. I mean, the Pacers were the closest, and Pacers haven't won anything. The Colts probably. When the Colts won with Peyton Manning, that's probably the last time. That's been a while. It's been 20 years just about. So, Indiana, you're going to get your first national championship, and they are going to prove to Josh once and for all that they are a football school, not a basketball school, just a basketball school, I should say. Bloomington, Josh made enemies with you in the beginning of the season, but you're going to get the last laugh because you were going to win the national championship, have the Heisman Trophy winner, and put yourselves into the conversation for a top 5 team ever. And that is something I never thought I would ever say about the Indiana Hoosiers in football. And that is all credit to Kurt Cignetti. That's credit to Fernando Mendoza. That is credit to that entire infrastructure of that program. And if they end up winning this, cool. That's awesome. It's a great storyline. But you got to finish, because if they lose on Monday night, nobody is going to care what they did. No one's going to care about the 15-0 record. Nobody's going to care about Mendoza's Heisman. Nobody is going to care, because the only thing that matters is what happens on the field Monday night. So, Will, before we get out of here, because we are both picking Indiana, is there anything you want to tell the people, anything you're looking forward to specifically about this game that you just want to kind of discuss? Or just in general about college football, whatever you want to talk about.
So in general, there's one thing I want to ask your opinion on, and it's this Virginia quarterback situation. So we know Chandler Morris is gone. He's not coming back to school. And so that led Virginia to dive into the transfer portal, and they picked up Bo Pribula from Missouri earlier this week. And then right after that, and maybe it's like a Dante Moore and Dylan Raiola type of move, they went and they got Eli Holstein from Pitt. Those are 2 guys that started at other Power 5 schools this year. I can't really understand why Holstein would do what he did. What do you make of this quarterback battle that we're probably going to have? Who do you think wins the job? What do you think of it next season?
I think it's Virginia giving themselves options, because as we saw, one of the big reasons why Virginia ended up not making the college football playoff was inconsistent play from the quarterback position.
Yes.
I think Bo Pribula probably wins this job. I think he was the more consistent last year. I mean, we saw Eli Holstein get benched, and this was a guy I was high on entering the year. I was very high on that Pittsburgh team. I think this might be a way for him to kind of fine-tune his skills a little bit, sitting behind, learning a little bit. I like Bo Pribula. I really do. I think he's a very good quarterback, and I think he's going to do really well for this Virginia team. But the way they have done it is kind of weird, but I don't hate it. Get as many good quarterbacks as you can, and may the best one win, basically. And then, like I said about Oregon, if an injury happens to happen, which does happen in football and sports, you have a solid backup. And we often see teams not prepare for things like that, and I think that this is Virginia's way of doing that. So I don't hate it. I actually kind of like what they're doing. It's not like they're going out there getting multiple big name guys and having them sit behind each other. They're getting quality players who can push each other and get the best out of each other for the upcoming season.
Absolutely. Now, one more question I'll ask: do you think that Pribula can get Virginia back to the ACC championship, possibly the college football playoff?
I'm going to say yes, because I don't know how the ACC is going to be, because as we talked about, it changes year to year. But if I'm looking at the ACC as what it could be, I mean, it's probably the weakest of the Power 4. And I like Virginia. I thought they were pretty good this year. I thought they just made a couple mistakes. They put some fire down the stretch of the season where they obviously were in some closer games than they should have been. But they have a good structure there, and I think Virginia I think they're going to be just fine. They get a little bit better quarterback play. We were probably seeing them in the college football playoff, probably over Miami, which is the crazy thing to say. Miami would not have won if that Duke game goes the other way. Miami's not even in the playoff, and now they're one win from a championship. So that's it's sports are crazy. I love it. It's cause and effect everywhere, and it makes this game, specifically college football, so much fun. But it's gonna be fun. What are you a Virginia believer for next year?
I think I can be. I can get behind it. They have a lot of returning stuff. There are a lot of returning production and players from this season. I think all of their O-line's going to be back. They've got a couple weapons coming back. I think that Pabula can be looked at in some ways as an upgrade at quarterback because Pabula played some pretty good football this season while he was at Missouri. I think that playing in a weaker conference, probably against a weaker schedule, it's going to give him more time to learn. He's not going to have to do as much. And I think that this Virginia team, because of what they're retaining, because of how well coached they are, I think that if they clean some things up for next season, they could absolutely be in that conversation right back in the same spot they were this year. Hopefully not losing in the ACC championship game, but they could definitely be a CFP contender for next season.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And it's going to be interesting to kind of see how these teams build. Obviously transfer portal closes tomorrow. And here's the thing: if Indiana wins, teams might try to replicate that. If Miami wins, teams might try to replicate how they've built things. So it's all, like I said, cause and effect. We're gonna see what happens. It's gonna be fun, but we're in for a great national championship game. It's gonna be fun. I really hope it's a close game. I hope it's not a blowout. I don't think anyone wants to see that. Maybe
That
except
would
for the
be
team
terrible.
except for the team that is doing the blowing out. No one wants to see it. Let's hope for a great game. But we want to thank everybody for tuning in. It's been a great season. We're gonna get this championship game going here. But please make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, like this video. We appreciate everyone for tuning in. We appreciate all the support and everything. But for Will and I, we'll be calling it out here. And we cannot wait for this championship game, and we will see you next time. Thank you, and I hope everyone has a great weekend and heading into Monday.
This is TWSN.